The flames danced between us, casting shadows across Jonathan's face as he reached for the champagne bottle. We had done this 100 times before, sitting by the fire pit in his backyard talking about everything and nothing. 10 years of friendship had made these moments feel as natural as breathing. But tonight felt different. The air held something I could not name. "You know what's funny?" Jonathan said, refilling my glass. The bubbles caught the firelight, sparkling like tiny stars. "Everyone at the office thinks we're secretly married." I laughed, but it came out shakier than I intended. "That's ridiculous." "Is it though?" He set down the bottle and turned to face me fully. His blue eyes held that mischievous glint I had seen countless times, the one that usually meant he was about to say something to make me laugh. "We spend more time together than most married couples. You know my coffee order. I know you hate mushrooms but pretend to like them when my mom makes that casserole. That's what best friends do," I said softly, my heart picking up speed for reasons I did not want to examine. Jonathan stood up then, and my breath caught in my throat. He walked around the fire pit to my side, and before I could process what was happening, he dropped to one knee. "Brianna Coleman," he said, his voice warm with what I thought was humor, "will you marry me?" The world stopped. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. My hands gripped the arms of the chair as 10 years of buried feelings surged up all at once. I knew he was joking. Of course he was joking. Jonathan Bennett, billionaire tech genius, did not actually want to marry his best friend who he had known since she was a broke graduate student serving him overpriced coffee. But my heart did not know it was a joke. My heart had been waiting for this question for 8 years, since the day I realized that friendship had bloomed into something deeper, something I kept locked away because I could not bear to lose him. The words came out before I could stop them, raw and honest and terrifying. "I thought you'd never ask." Jonathan's smile froze. The playfulness drained from his face, replaced by something I could not read. He stayed on one knee, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. The silence stretched between us like a bridge neither of us knew how to cross. "Bree," he said slowly, my nickname sounding different in his mouth. I thought we were." "Joking," I finished for him, my voice barely above a whisper. Heat flooded my cheeks. "Right. Of course. I was just playing along." But we both knew that was a lie. It hung in the air between us, as visible as the smoke rising from the fire. Jonathan stayed on his knee for another heartbeat, his eyes searching mine. I wanted to look away but could not. 10 years of friendship balanced on this moment, and I had just pushed it off the edge. Finally he stood. He did not sit back down in his chair. Instead, he moved to the railing of the deck, his back to me, staring out at the city lights below his hillside estate. "How long?" he asked quietly. My throat tightened. I could lie. I could laugh it off, make another joke, pretend my heart was not hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. But kindness had always been our foundation. Truth had always been our language. 8 years, I admitted. Maybe longer. I don't know exactly when it happened. He turned around slowly. His expression was not angry or disgusted or any of the things I had feared over the years. It was stunned. Completely and utterly stunned. 8 years, he repeated. "Brianna, why didn't you say something?" I stood up, needing to move, needing to do something with the energy coursing through my body. "Because I couldn't lose you. You're my best friend, Jonathan. You've been there for everything. When my dad died, when I graduated, when I landed my first big contract. You've supported every dream I've ever had. How could I risk that? So you just suffered in silence?" "It wasn't suffering," I said quickly. "Being your friend has been one of the greatest joys of my life. I meant that." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was processing something big. I need to think about this." The words hit me like cold water. Of course he needed to think. Of course this was a shock. I had just appended 10 years of friendship with a truth I should have kept buried. "I should go," I said, grabbing my purse from the side table. "Bree, wait." He reached for my arm, his touch gentle. "Don't leave like this." But I could not stay. Not with those words hanging between us. Not with the possibility of watching our friendship crumble written all over his face. "I'll call you tomorrow," I said, pulling away gently. "We can talk then. When you've had time to think." I walked through his house, the familiar path from the backyard through the kitchen and to the front door feeling like a journey through foreign territory. Everything looked the same expensive furniture, the same family photos on the walls, the same abstract art pieces I had helped him pick out. But everything felt different. My car was parked in the circular driveway. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking. The cool night air did nothing to calm the burning in my chest. What had I done? Why had I said those words? Why could I not have just laughed it off, kept my secret safe for another 8 years? The driver's side door opened and I slid into the seat. Before I could close it, Jonathan was there, slightly out of breath from running after me. Brianna, please. Just give me tonight. Let me process this. But don't think for 1 second that this ruins anything between us, okay? I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that we could come back from this. But the look in his eyes told me that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Okay, I whispered. He stepped back and I closed the door. As I drove down his long driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Jonathan stood in the golden light pouring from his front door, watching me leave. The image burned itself into my memory. Have you ever loved someone in silence, afraid that speaking your truth would destroy the most important relationship in your life? If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe to hear what happens next. Comment below and tell me, should Brianna have kept her secret, or was it time for the truth to come out? The drive home passed in a blur. I lived in a condo downtown, a beautiful space I had been able to afford because of the career Jonathan had helped me build. When I was drowning in student debt, working 3 jobs just to make ends meet, he had offered to pay for my final year of graduate school. I had hesitated, pride warring with desperation, but he had made it clear it was not charity. You're going to be an amazing architect, he had said all those years ago, sitting across from me in that same coffee shop where we met. I'm investing in your future. When you're rich and famous, you can design my next building. I had accepted, gratefully and true to my word. I had designed the headquarters for his latest tech venture. We were even in the monetary sense. But the debt of friendship, of kindness, of all the ways he had shown up for me over the years, that was something I could never fully repay. My phone buzzed as I walked into my apartment. A text from Tasha, my best friend since college. How was the dinner with Mr. Perfect? Did he finally realize you two are meant to be? Tasha had been encouraging me to tell Jonathan for years. She could not understand why I kept my feelings hidden. But Tasha had not lost a parent, had not experienced the fear of losing someone you loved. She did not know what it felt like to have your world ripped apart. I could not risk losing Jonathan too. I texted back, told him everything. It went about as well as a car crash. My phone rang immediately. What do you mean you told him? Tasha's voice was sharp with concern. I sank onto my couch, kicking off my heels. He jokingly proposed. I said I thought he'd never ask. It just came out, Tasha. I couldn't stop it. Oh honey, what did he say? That he needs time to think. Tears pricked my eyes. I might have just destroyed the best friendship I've ever had. Or, Tasha said gently, you might have finally opened the door to something more. Bree, you can't keep living in fear. Love requires risk. I don't want to love him, I said, and even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were a lie. I want to go back to yesterday when everything was simple. Life doesn't work that way. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unfeel what you feel. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Jonathan was sitting in his house, thinking about my confession. Was he angry? Confused? Did he feel betrayed that I had kept this secret for so long? Sleep did not come easy that night. I tossed and turned, replaying every moment from the evening. The way his eyes had widened when I said those words. The way his voice had cracked when he asked how long. The way he had looked at me like I was a stranger wearing his best friend's face. By morning, I had convinced myself that everything was ruined. I got ready for work mechanically, pulling on a bright red blazer over a white blouse, trying to armor myself with professional confidence. I had a meeting with a potential client, a presentation I had been preparing for weeks. I could not fall apart now. My phone stayed silent. No call from Jonathan. No text. The silence felt louder than any words could have been. At my office, I threw myself into work. My assistant, a young woman named Kelly, brought me coffee and the files for the presentation. I reviewed the plans for the sustainable housing project I wanted to pitch, forcing my mind to focus on concrete details rather than the mess I had made of my personal life. The meeting went well. The client loved my designs, praised my innovative approach to green architecture. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt hollow. Every success in my life had been shared with Jonathan. He was always my first call, my first text, the person I celebrated with. Now I did not know if I could even talk to him. By the time I returned to my office, it was late afternoon. The sun streamed through my windows, painting everything in shades of gold. I stood looking out at the city, at the skyline Jonathan's buildings had helped shape, and wondered if I had just thrown away the most important thing in my life for a feeling I should have kept buried. My phone buzzed. My heart stopped. Jonathan's name lit up my screen. Can we talk? Tonight? Same place we always meet. The coffee shop. Where it all began. Where he had first offered to help me, where our friendship had taken root and grown into something I could not control. I typed back with trembling fingers, "What time?" 7. I'll be there. 10 years ago, I had been a different person. Young, broke, exhausted from working 3 jobs while trying to finish my architecture degree. The coffee shop was my morning shift from 5 to 9 before classes started. I made lattes for business people who barely looked at me, who treated me like part of the furniture, invisible and replaceable. Jonathan Bennett had been one of those people at first. He came in every morning at 6:30, ordered the same thing, a large black coffee and a blueberry muffin. He wore expensive suits even then, though I did not know who he was. He sat in the corner booth, working on his laptop, his brow furrowed in concentration. I noticed him because he was polite. In a sea of people who barked orders without eye contact, he always said please and thank you. Small things, but they mattered to someone who felt invisible most of the time. It was a Tuesday in October when everything changed. The shop was unusually crowded and I was running behind. A difficult customer had held up the line, complaining about the temperature of her drink, demanding I remake it 3 times. By the time Jonathan reached the counter, I was frazzled and fighting back tears of frustration. The usual? I asked, not meeting his eyes. Actually, he said, and something in his tone made me look up. His blue eyes were kind, concerned. Are you okay? The question, simple as it was, broke something in me. I was not okay. I was drowning in debt, barely sleeping, terrified I would not graduate, terrified I would end up stuck in jobs like this forever. But you did not say that to customers. You smiled and lied and moved on. Just a long morning, I said, managing a smile. 1 black coffee and a blueberry muffin coming up. He did not move away from the counter like most people did. He stayed watching me make his drink. I see you here every morning, he said. You're always working so hard. Are you in school? Graduate school, I said, surprised he had noticed. Architecture. 1 more year. That's impressive. Architecture is tough. I handed him his coffee and muffin. Yeah, well, the tough part is paying for it. The words slipped out before I could stop them. I did not talk about my problems with customers. But something about his genuine interest, the way he actually seemed to see me as a person, lowered my guard. He pulled out his wallet to pay, but instead of just giving me cash, he pulled out a business card. Jonathan Bennett, he said. I run a tech company. We're always looking for talented people, especially in design and architecture. If you ever want to talk about opportunities, give me a call. I stared at the card. Thank you, but I don't know anything about tech. You'd be surprised how much overlap there is. Buildings and software both require structure, design, problem solving. Think about it. He left and I tucked the card into my pocket, assuming I would never use it. But I kept it. Something about the interaction stayed with me. He kept coming in every morning. We started talking more. Brief conversations at first, about school, about his work, about the city. I learned he had started his company 5 years earlier, that he was passionate about innovation, that despite his wealth, he still liked simple things like black coffee and blueberry muffins. 3 months later, I was in my advisor's office, staring at a number that made my stomach sink. You're short $15,000 for next semester's tuition, Dr. Adams said gently. I can try to help you find additional scholarships, but Brianna, at some point you might need to consider taking a semester off to work and save. The thought of delaying my degree, of working more hours, of pushing my dreams further away felt like drowning. I left the office in a daze. I went to the coffee shop even though my shift had ended. I sat in the back corner, trying not to cry, trying to figure out what to do. Jonathan came in at his usual time. When he saw me sitting there instead of working, he came over. Can I sit? He asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. What's wrong? His concern was genuine, his full attention on me. And I told him. Everything. The debt, the fear, the impossible choice between my degree and my survival. I had not meant to unload on him, but once I started, I could not stop. He listened without interrupting. When I finally fell silent, he was quiet for a long moment. Let me help, he said. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Brianna, you're talented. You're hardworking. You deserve to finish your degree. Consider it an investment in someone I believe in. I wanted to refuse. Pride screamed at me to say no. But desperation was louder. And something in his eyes told me this was not pity. It was genuine belief in me. I'll pay you back, I said. Every cent. I promise. I know you will. But I'm not worried about that. I'm investing in your future, not loaning you money. That conversation changed everything. He paid for my final year. I graduated with honors, landed a job at a prestigious firm, started building my career. But more than the financial help, Jonathan became my friend. Real, true friendship that had nothing to do with money or obligation. We started meeting regularly. Coffee evolved into lunch, lunch into dinner. We discovered we both loved old movies, hated pretentious art, believed in using success to help others. He was brilliant but kind, wealthy but grounded. And somewhere along the way, my gratitude had transformed into something deeper. I fell in love with him the day he showed up at my first big presentation at work. I had not invited him, had not even told him about it. But somehow he knew. He sat in the back of the conference room, and when I saw him there, supporting me, believing in me, my heart recognized what my mind had been denying. But I said nothing. How could I? He had saved me from drowning in debt. Our friendship was precious. I could not risk it on feelings that might not be returned. So I learned to live with love as a secret. I celebrated his business victories, listened to his dating disasters, gave advice on relationships with women who were not me. I built a successful career, designed beautiful buildings, created a life I was proud of. And through it all, Jonathan was my constant, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone. Until last night when I could not keep the secret anymore. Now, sitting in my office, waiting for 7 o'clock to arrive, I wondered if I had just traded 10 years of friendship for one moment of honesty. The fear sat heavy in my chest as I gathered my things and headed to the coffee shop where it all began. The coffee shop looked different than it had 10 years ago. New owners, modern decor, higher prices. But the corner booth where Jonathan used to sit remained, and that was where I found him waiting for me. He stood when I walked in, and for a second we just looked at each other. I had changed out of my red blazer into a more casual blue sweater and jeans. He wore khakis and a green button-down, casual for him, no tie. "Hi," I said softly. "Hi." He gestured to the booth. "I ordered your drink. Vanilla latte extra foam." Of course he remembered. He remembered everything about me. That was part of what made this so hard. We sat down across from each other, the familiar booth feeling strange now. The drink sat between us, steam rising like the unsaid words that filled the air. "I didn't sleep last night," Jonathan said, breaking the silence. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how I missed this. 8 years, Bree. How did I not see it? "Because I made sure you didn't," I said quietly. "I got good at hiding it." He leaned back, studying me. "Tell me about it. When did you know? What made you realize?" I wrapped my hands around my latte, letting the warmth steady me. This was Jonathan, my best friend. If I could not be honest with him, what was the point of any of this? "Do you remember my first big presentation? The one for the Morrison building?" "Of course. You were terrified. You called me the night before, convinced you were going to mess it up." I smiled at the memory. "You talked me through it for 2 hours. You helped me practice, told me I was brilliant, made me believe in myself. And then you showed up. You sat in the back of that conference room, and when our eyes met, I felt this certainty, like coming home. And I realized I was in love with you." His expression shifted, something I could not quite read passing across his face. "That was 5 years ago," he said. I said 8 years. That's when I knew for sure. But looking back, I think it started earlier. Maybe the day you paid my tuition. Maybe the first time you made me laugh when I wanted to cry. Maybe it was always there, waiting for me to notice. Why didn't you tell me then? 5 years ago, when you knew. I took a sip of my latte, buying time to find the right words. Because you were dating Rebecca. Because our friendship was the most stable thing in my life. Because I was terrified of losing you. "Rebecca," he said, shaking his head. "That lasted what, 6 months? 7. And there was Jennifer before her and Amanda after. You've dated a lot of women, Jonathan. None of them were right," he said quietly. "I know. You told me that about every single one. And every time, I listened and I supported you, and I kept my feelings locked away." He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. "I wish you had told me. Would it have changed anything?" The question hung between us. He did not answer right away, his blue eyes searching mine. "I don't know," he admitted. 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have seen it. But Bree, I need you to understand something. You are the most important person in my life. Have been for a long time. I just never thought that I could feel that way about you," I finished. "That someone like you would want someone like me." I laughed, the sound sharp with disbelief. "Jonathan, you're a billionaire. You're brilliant, kind, successful. And you're beautiful, talented, independent. You never needed me. That's what I always thought. You accepted my help with school because you were desperate, but after that, you made your own way. You never asked for anything. Never needed anything from me. I needed your friendship, I said. That was everything. He finally took my hand, his fingers warm and familiar. I've been thinking all night about us. About every moment we've shared. And I keep coming back to this question. What if? My heart picked up speed. What if what? What if we try? What if we see where this goes? Hope bloomed in my chest, dangerous and bright. You mean that? I don't want to lose you either, Bree. But I also can't pretend I didn't hear what you said last night. I can't unknow that you felt this way for years. And I'd be lying if I said I never wondered. Wondered what? He squeezed my hand gently. Why none of those relationships worked. Why I always compared everyone to you. Why coming home to an empty house felt wrong when I knew you were just a phone call away. Tears pricked my eyes. Jonathan. I'm not saying I'm in love with you. Not yet. I need to be honest about that. But I'm saying I want to find out if I could be. If we could be. Because the thought of losing you completely is worse than the risk of trying. This was more than I had hoped for. More than I had dared to dream when I drove away from his house last night. We'd have to take it slow, I said. I don't want to rush this and mess it up. Agreed. We'll figure it out together. Like we always do. I nodded, a smile breaking through despite my tears. Okay, let's try. He grinned, that familiar Jonathan smile that always made my heart skip. So, do we tell people? Or keep it quiet while we figure things out? Let's keep it quiet for now. I don't want pressure from everyone watching and waiting to see if we fail. Smart. He glanced around the coffee shop, then back at me. You want to get out of here? Go somewhere we can actually talk without all these people? Where? My place? We could order takeout, watch one of those old movies you love, just be us. See what that feels like now. I hesitated. Going to his house had always been natural, easy. But now everything had changed. Hey, he said gently, reading my uncertainty. If it's too much, we can go somewhere else. Or call it a night. Whatever you're comfortable with. That was Jonathan. Always considerate, always putting me first. Your place is good, I said. Let's go. We took separate cars, agreeing to meet at his house. The drive gave me time to process everything. Jonathan wanted to try. He wanted to see if we could be more than friends. It was not a declaration of love, but it was a beginning. And that was enough. His estate looked different somehow, knowing that I was arriving as a potential girlfriend rather than just a friend. The lights were warm and welcoming, the sprawling house on the hillside a testament to everything he had built. He was already there when I arrived, having beaten me despite leaving second. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the interior lights, and for a moment I just looked at him. Really looked at him, allowing myself to see him as more than a friend for the first time in years without guilt. You coming in? He called, smiling. I got out of my car and walked to him. Just admiring the view. The house or the owner? He teased. Both, I admitted, and his smile widened. Inside everything was familiar. The open floor plan, the modern kitchen, the comfortable furniture. I had been here hundreds of times. But tonight felt different. Jonathan grabbed menus from a drawer. Thai? He suggested. Perfect. We ordered our usual dishes, falling into comfortable patterns. While we waited for delivery, we moved to the living room. I sat on the couch, and after a moment's hesitation, Jonathan sat next to me. Not across in the armchair like he usually did. Next to me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. This is weird, right? He said. I laughed. So weird. But good weird. Yeah, good weird. The food arrived and we ate at his dining table, talking about work, about his latest project, about my sustainable housing pitch. It was easy, natural, the same as it had always been. But underneath, something new hummed between us, full of possibility. After dinner, we loaded the dishwasher together, another familiar routine. But when his hand brushed mine passing a plate, the touch felt electric. We both noticed, both paused, both smiled. Movie? He suggested. We settled on the couch with an old Cary Grant film, one of our favorites. Halfway through, Jonathan shifted closer, his arm along the back of the couch behind me. It was the oldest move in the book and I almost laughed. But I leaned into him instead, resting my head on his shoulder. He stiffened for a second, then relaxed, his arm coming down around my shoulders. We fit together perfectly, like we had been made to sit this way. This is nice, he murmured. Yeah, I agreed. It really is. We watched the movie in comfortable silence, and for the first time in years I let myself just be. No hiding, no pretending, no fear. Just Brianna and Jonathan, best friends exploring what might come next. When the credits rolled, I should have gone home. It was late and we both had work in the morning. But I did not want to leave. Not yet. Stay, Jonathan said softly as if reading my mind. Just asleep. Guest room. No pressure. I should have said no. We were taking things slow. But the thought of driving home alone, of losing this feeling of rightness, made me nod. Okay. Just tonight. He showed me to the guest room, gave me one of his shirts to sleep in. At the door, we stood awkwardly, neither knowing how to say goodnight in this new reality. Thank you, I said finally, for being willing to try. Thank you for telling me the truth, even though it scared you. He leaned in and for a breathless moment I thought he might kiss me. But he pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead instead, tender and sweet. Good night, Bree. Good night, Jonathan. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart racing. This was really happening. We were really trying. And for the first time in 8 years, hope felt like more than just a dangerous emotion to suppress. It felt like a promise of something beautiful waiting to unfold. Jonathan stood outside the guest room door long after Brianna had closed it. His mind was spinning, trying to process the seismic shift that had occurred in the last 24 hours. His best friend was in love with him. Had been for 8 years. How had he been so blind? He walked to his own bedroom, but sleep felt impossible. Instead, he sat on the edge of his bed, thinking back over the years of their friendship, seeing it all through a new lens. There had been signs. Of course there had been signs. He just had not wanted to see them. Or maybe he had trained himself not to see them because acknowledging them would mean facing questions he was not ready to answer. Like why Rebecca had bothered him so much when she said Brianna was too involved in his life. Or why he had ended things with Jennifer after she had suggested he was using his friendship with Brianna to avoid real commitment. Or why he always felt hollow after dates with other women, comparing their conversations to the effortless connection he had with Bree. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through their text history. Thousands of messages over the years. Good morning texts and good night wishes. Funny memes and serious conversations. She had been there for everything. Every victory, every failure, every mundane moment of his life. When had she become essential? He thought back to the beginning, to that day in the coffee shop when he had first really seen her. She had been frazzled and overwhelmed, but there had been something in her eyes that caught his attention. Determination. Intelligence. A refusal to give up despite impossible odds. Offering to help with her tuition had been impulsive. He did not usually get involved in strangers' lives that way. But something about Brianna had made him want to. Made him believe that investing in her was worth it. And he had been right. She had graduated with honors, built an incredible career, become one of the most respected young architects in the city. Watching her succeed had filled him with pride that went beyond friendship. He remembered the day she had gotten her first big contract. She had called him, screaming with joy, and he had dropped everything to take her to dinner to celebrate. The way her eyes had lit up, the way she had grabbed his hands across the table and squeezed, thanking him for believing in her, that had felt different, special. But he had pushed the feeling away. Brianna was his friend. She was not interested in him that way. She was grateful, sure, but that was not the same as romantic interest. He had been so certain of that. When had she fallen in love with him? She said 5 years ago at that presentation. He closed his eyes, picturing that day. He had shown up to support her because he knew how nervous she was. When she had spotted him in the audience, her whole face had transformed. Relief and happiness and something else he had not examined too closely. He should have seen it then. Should have recognized that look. But he had been dating Rebecca, focused on making that relationship work, determined to find the right person to settle down with. His father had been pressuring him to get serious, to think about marriage and family. And Brianna had been his friend, safely in the friend category, not someone he needed to consider romantically. Except he had considered it. In quiet moments, in the space between sleep and waking, in the car on the way home from dinners with her, he had wondered, what would it be like to come home to her every night? To kiss her goodnight instead of just texting? To build a life together that was more than friendship? But the fear had always stopped him. Fear of ruining what they had. Fear that she did not feel the same way. Fear that trying and failing would mean losing the most important person in his life. So he had dated other women. Nice women, accomplished women, women who should have been perfect for him on paper. And none of them had felt right. None of them had made him feel the way Brianna did. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister, Grace. Heard you had an interesting evening. Want to talk about it? Of course she had heard. Grace had been friends with Brianna too, had watched their relationship over the years with knowing looks and pointed comments. He called her instead of texting back. It's midnight, Grace said by way of greeting. This must be serious. Brianna's in love with me. Has been for 8 years. Silence. Then, finally. Finally? You knew. Grace laughed. Jonathan, everyone knew except you. That woman looks at you like you hung the moon. Has for years. He sat back against his headboard, stunned. Why didn't you say something? Because it wasn't my place. And because you needed to figure it out yourself. So what are you going to do about it? I told her we should try. See where it goes. And, how do you feel about her? That was the question, was it not? How did he feel? I don't know, he admitted. She's my best friend. I care about her more than anyone. But is that love? Or is that just really deep friendship? Let me ask you something, Grace said. When you picture your future, who's in it? Bree, he answered immediately. She's always in it. When something good happens, who do you want to tell first? Bree. When you're having a bad day, who do you want to see? Bree, he said again, seeing where this was going. And when you think about growing old, settling down, building a life, who's there with you? He closed his eyes. In every vision of his future, in every dream of what his life could be, Brianna was there. Always. He had just never labeled it as romantic love because he had convinced himself she did not feel that way. Her, he whispered. It's always been her. Then maybe you already know how you feel. You've just been too scared to admit it. They talked for another hour, Grace helping him untangle years of feelings he had suppressed. By the time they hung up, Jonathan felt clearer. He was not in love with Brianna yet, not in the way she deserved. But he could be. The potential was there, had probably always been there, waiting for permission to grow. He got ready for bed, but before turning off the light, he walked quietly to the guest room door. No sound came from inside. He hoped she was sleeping, hoped she was not lying awake worrying about what they had started. Tomorrow they would figure out what this new relationship looked like. But tonight he let himself feel grateful. Grateful that she had been brave enough to tell him the truth. Grateful that he had not lost her. Grateful for the possibility of something more with the person who already meant everything to him. The next morning, Jonathan woke early. He made coffee, started breakfast, wanting everything to be perfect when Brianna woke up. This was their first morning together in this new dynamic, and he wanted her to feel cared for, wanted, valued. She came into the kitchen at 7, still wearing his shirt, her natural curls slightly messy from sleep. She looked beautiful and vulnerable and perfect. Morning, he said, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter to her. Vanilla latte with extra foam. She smiled, wrapping her hands around the mug. You have a milk frother? Bought one last week. Wanted to be able to make your favorite. Something in her expression shifted, softened. You bought a frother for me? I buy a lot of things for you. Or because of you. Haven't you noticed? She looked around his kitchen and he saw her taking in the small details. The brand of tea she liked in the cupboard. The dark chocolate she preferred in the pantry. The specific brand of yogurt she ate for breakfast stocked in his refrigerator. I thought you just liked the same things, she said quietly. I like making you happy, he corrected. I have for a long time. She set down her coffee and moved around the counter to him. For a moment they just stood there, close enough to touch but not quite touching. The air felt charged with possibility. We should probably set some ground rules, she said. For this, whatever this is. Good idea. You first. She thought for a moment. No pressure. We don't have to figure everything out right away. If one of us is uncomfortable, we talk about it. Agreed. What else? Honesty. Complete honesty even when it's scary. He nodded. And we keep this private for now. Just between us until we know what it is. Perfect. Anything else? He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear, the touch gentle. We remember why we're doing this. Not because we have to, but because we want to. The moment it stops feeling right, we talk about it. Okay. She leaned into his touch slightly. This is really happening, isn't it? Yeah. It really is. His phone rang, breaking the moment. Work calling, always work. He grimaced apologetically. I have to take this. It's about the merger. Go, she said, stepping back. I should get home anyway. Need to change for work. Dinner tonight? He asked, phone still ringing. I'd like that. He answered the call, watching her gather her things. Before she left, she came back to him, rising on her toes to kiss his cheek. Thank you for giving us a chance, she whispered. Then she was gone, and Jonathan was left talking about stock prices and acquisition terms while his mind was completely focused on the woman who had just walked out of his kitchen wearing his shirt. The woman who might just be the love of his life. The next week passed in a strange blend of familiar and new. Brianna and Jonathan continued their usual routines, their texts and calls and meetings all seemingly normal to anyone watching. But underneath, everything had shifted. They had dinner together 3 times that week. Once at a quiet Italian restaurant where they sat in a back booth and talked for hours. Once at Brianna's apartment, where she cooked pasta while he told her about the complications with his company merger. And once at his place, where they attempted to make sushi with disastrous and hilarious results. Each time they ended the evening with the same tentative sweetness. A lingering hug, a kiss on the forehead or cheek, hands held for a few precious seconds. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just 2 people learning a new way to be together. But on Friday afternoon, Jonathan called with news that made Brianna's heart race for entirely different reasons. "I just got off the phone with Richard Morrison," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "You know, the developer who's building that new complex downtown?" "Of course," Brianna said, pulling over to the side of the road to give him her full attention. "What about him?" "He saw your sustainable housing proposal. Someone at the City Planning Commission sent it to him. And he wants to meet with you about designing his next project. Bree, this could be huge. We're talking $100 million development." She could barely breathe. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. He wants to meet next Wednesday. And here's the thing, he mentioned specifically that I recommended you." "You recommended me? When?" "I might have mentioned at a networking event last month that you were the most talented architect I knew. And that anyone looking for innovative, sustainable design should talk to you." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. Even before they had started exploring this new relationship, Jonathan had been looking out for her career, opening doors, believing in her. "Jonathan, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take the meeting. Say you'll wow him the way you wow everyone with your designs." "Of course I'll take the meeting. But this, you've done so much for me over the years. Sometimes I feel like I can never repay you." "You don't repay friendship, Bree. And you don't repay love. You just accept it and let it make your life better." Love. He had said love. Not that he loved her romantically, not yet. But the word still made her heart skip. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Always. Now we should celebrate. Dinner at that steakhouse you like?" "Yes, but let me take you this time. It's my potential good news." He laughed. "You know I'm going to argue about that. Let me do this, please. I want to celebrate with you, but I also want to show you that I can stand on my own now." There was a pause. Then, "Okay. You can buy me dinner. But only because I'm proud of you and want you to feel like the successful woman you are." They made plans for that evening, and when Brianna hung up, she sat in her car just breathing. Life felt impossibly good right now. Her career was taking off, she had the best support system anyone could ask for, and she was exploring a romantic relationship with the man she had loved for years. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. This was all moving so fast. What if it fell apart? What if trying to be more than friends ruined everything? She called Tasha, needing to talk through her feelings. "He set up a meeting that could change my entire career," Brianna said after explaining the situation. "That's amazing. So why do you sound worried?" "Because what if this is all part of the friendship thing? What if he's not actually interested in me romantically, but he feels obligated now because I told him how I feel? Did he seem obligated when he suggested staying overnight last week? When he bought a milk frother just to make your coffee the way you like it? When he holds your hand every time you're together now?" "No," Brianna admitted. "But what if I'm seeing what I want to see instead of what's really there? Or what if you're so used to hiding your feelings that you can't accept it when someone shows you theirs? Bree, that man has been in love with you for years. He just didn't realize it yet." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've watched how he looks at you. How he talks about you when you're not around. The way his whole face lights up when your name comes up. That's not obligation. That's love." Brianna wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust that this was real, that Jonathan's feelings were growing the way hers had years ago. "I'm taking him to dinner tonight," she said. "To celebrate the meeting." "Good. And Bree? Stop overthinking this. Just enjoy it. You've waited 8 years for this chance. Don't ruin it by being scared." The steakhouse was elegant without being pretentious, the kind of place where you could have both a serious conversation and a celebration. Brianna had dressed carefully in a deep blue dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. When Jonathan arrived in a dark gray suit, his eyes widened appreciatively. "You look stunning," he said, kissing her cheek in greeting. "You clean up pretty well yourself." They were seated at a quiet table near the window, overlooking the city lights. The waiter brought menus and they ordered wine and appetizers, falling into easy conversation. "Tell me about this Morrison project," Brianna said. "What did you hear about it?" Jonathan grinned. "So I might have done a little research after I hung up with you. Morrison is planning a mixed-use development on the old waterfront property. Residential, commercial, public spaces. He's looking for someone who can make it both profitable and sustainable. Someone who understands that good design serves both people and planet. That's exactly what I've been arguing for in my proposals." "I know. That's why I talked you up to him. Bree, you're perfect for this. And you don't need me to get it. Your work speaks for itself." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "But you opened the door. You've opened so many doors for me. Because I believe in you. Because watching you succeed makes me happy. Is that so wrong?" "No. It's one of the things I love most about you." The word hung between them. Well, she had said it casually, but they both felt its weight. "Brianna," he said softly, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. When you fell in love with me, did it feel like this? Like everything suddenly made sense but was also terrifying?" Her breath caught. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying I think I'm falling for you. I don't know if I'm all the way there yet. But every day with you feels different now. Better. Like I've been walking around half asleep and suddenly I'm awake." Tears pricked her eyes. "Jonathan. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. I'm not in this because I feel obligated. I'm in this because I can't imagine not being in this." Their food arrived, interrupting the moment, but the words lingered. They ate slowly, talking about work and friends and everything under the sun. But underneath every conversation was the knowledge that something beautiful was growing between them. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the same area where Morrison's development would be built. Brianna pointed out where she would place green spaces, how she would maximize natural light, where public art could transform the space. Jonathan listened, asking questions, offering ideas, his arm around her shoulders as they walked. When they reached a quiet bench overlooking the water, they sat down and Brianna leaned into him. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "Of what?" "That this is too good. That something will go wrong. That I'll lose you." He turned to face her, his hand cupping her cheek gently. "You're not going to lose me. Even if we decided tomorrow that romance wasn't for us, you would still be my best friend. You would still be the most important person in my life. Nothing changes that. Promise?" "I promise." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But she did not want to. She had waited 8 years for this moment. When his lips met hers, soft and tentative and perfect, everything else fell away. It was not a passionate kiss, not yet. It was sweet and gentle and full of promise. A first kiss between two people who already knew everything about each other except what it felt like to be together this way. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "That was..." Brianna started. "Yeah," Jonathan finished. "It really was." They sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other, watching the city lights reflect on the water. And for the first time since she had confessed her feelings, Brianna let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was really going to work. 3 weeks after their first kiss, Jonathan invited Brianna to his company's annual charity gala. It was the biggest social event his company hosted, attended by business leaders, politicians, and media. He usually went alone or with a casual date who understood it was just for appearances. This time was different. "I want you there as my girlfriend," he said over coffee one morning. They had fallen into a routine of meeting for breakfast before work, stealing these quiet moments together. "Not as my friend who happens to be attending. As my actual girlfriend." Brianna's heart raced. "That's going public. Everyone will know." "I know. And I'm ready for that if you are. But no pressure. If you want to keep things private longer, I understand." She thought about it. Part of her wanted to keep their relationship in this protected bubble, just between them. But a bigger part wanted to stand beside him publicly, to claim him as hers the way she had dreamed of for years. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's tell people." His smile was brilliant. Yeah. But Jonathan, you know what this means, right? The media will dig into my background. They'll find out about the tuition, about how we met. People might think I'm with you for money." His expression hardened slightly. "Let them think what they want. Anyone who knows you knows that's not true. And anyone who matters will see how amazing you are." "Okay then. I'll need to find a dress." "Already taken care of." He pulled out his phone, showing her a website for an exclusive boutique. "I called in a favor. They're expecting you this afternoon. Pick whatever you want." She started to protest, old habits of independence rising up. But he cut her off gently. Let me do this, please. I want you to feel beautiful and confident. Consider it my thank you for being brave enough to be with me publicly. How could she argue with that? The boutique was unlike anywhere Brianna had ever shopped. The owner, a sophisticated woman named Catherine, greeted her warmly and showed her to a private fitting room already filled with stunning gowns. Mr. Bennett called personally, Catherine explained. He said you needed something that would make you feel like the most beautiful woman in the room. Though between you and me, I don't think you need a dress for that. Brianna tried on several options, but the moment she put on the emerald green gown, she knew. It fit perfectly, the color making her skin glow, the cut both elegant and modern. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself as Jonathan saw her. Beautiful, confident, worthy. She sent him a picture. His response was immediate, that's the one. You're going to take everyone's breath away. The night of the gala, Brianna got ready at her apartment while Tasha played stylist, helping with her hair and makeup. I still can't believe this is really happening, Tasha said, pinning a section of Brianna's curls into place. You and Jonathan going public, living your fairy tale. It doesn't feel like a fairy tale. Feels real. Scary and wonderful and real. That's because it is real. You're not some princess waiting to be rescued. You're a successful woman who happens to have fallen in love with her best friend. That's even better than a fairy tale. When Jonathan picked her up, the look on his face made every nervous moment worth it. He stood in her doorway in a navy tuxedo, looking like he had stepped out of a magazine, and just stared. Hi, she said, suddenly shy. Hi yourself. Brianna, I don't have words. You look pretty amazing too. He offered his arm. Ready to face the world together? As ready as I'll ever be. The gala was held at the city's grand ballroom, a space dripping with chandeliers and old-world elegance. Photographers lined the entrance, cameras flashing as guests arrived. When Brianna stepped out of the car on Jonathan's arm, the flashes intensified. Mr. Bennett, who's your date? Jonathan, is this a new relationship? Can you tell us her name? Jonathan smiled, his hand warm on the small of Brianna's back. This is Brianna Coleman, an incredibly talented architect and the most important person in my life. And yes, we're together. He said it clearly, confidently, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Brianna felt a surge of pride and affection. He was not hiding her or downplaying their relationship. He was claiming her publicly, proudly. Inside, the ballroom was filled with the city's elite. Brianna recognized faces from business magazines and news programs. This was Jonathan's world, a world she had observed from the sidelines but never fully entered. He introduced her to everyone with the same pride, his hand never leaving hers. This is Brianna, my girlfriend. Each time he said it, her heart swelled a little more. They made their way through the crowd, Jonathan stopping to chat with business associates while keeping Brianna close. She met the mayor, several prominent CEOs, and Jonathan's business partner, a sharp-minded woman named Lisa who looked at Brianna appraisingly before smiling. So you're the one who finally got through to him, Lisa said. I've been telling Jonathan for years he needed someone who actually understood him. Glad he finally listened. The dinner was elegant, the speeches inspiring. Jonathan's company had raised millions for education programs, something he was passionate about given his history of helping Brianna with school. When it was time for dancing, Jonathan led her to the floor. She had worried about this part, not being the best dancer, but in his arms, everything felt natural. You're doing great, he murmured as they swayed to the music. I'm terrified I'll step on your feet. I wouldn't mind. You could step on my feet every day and I'd still think you were perfect. She laughed, relaxing into him. Around them, other couples danced, but Brianna barely noticed. In this moment, it was just the two of them moving together like they had been doing this for years. What are you thinking? Jonathan asked. That I'm really happy. Scared but happy. What are you scared of? Before she could answer, a voice interrupted. Jonathan Bennett, as I live and breathe. They turned to find a tall man in his 40s, impeccably dressed, with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. Jonathan's hand tightened on Brianna's waist. Richard Sterling, Jonathan said evenly. I didn't know you were attending. Last-minute decision. Had to see what Bennett Industries was up to. Sterling's eyes moved to Brianna, assessing. And who might this lovely lady be? Brianna Coleman, Jonathan said, his voice cool. My girlfriend. Ah yes, I've heard about you. The architect Jonathan's been promoting so aggressively. Tell me, Miss Coleman, is it your design skills that caught his attention or other talents? The implication was clear and insulting. Brianna felt Jonathan tense beside her, his protective instinct flaring. But before he could respond, she spoke up. My design skills are what built my reputation, Mr. Sterling. Jonathan supports my work because it's excellent, not because of our personal relationship. Though I can understand why that might be confusing to someone who presumably judges talent by other criteria. Sterling's smile faltered. Beside her, Jonathan fought back a grin. My apologies, Sterling said, though he did not sound sorry. I meant no offense. Of course not, Brianna said sweetly. Now if you'll excuse us, we were dancing. She turned Jonathan back to the dance floor, her heart pounding. When they were out of Sterling's earshot, Jonathan pulled her closer. That was incredible, he said. You handled him perfectly. I wasn't going to let him insult either of us. And I definitely wasn't going to let you punch him, which you looked about 2 seconds away from doing. How did you know? Because I know you. You get this look when you're about to do something protective and possibly stupid. He laughed, the tension draining from his shoulders. Have I told you lately that I'm crazy about you? Not in the last hour. Well, I am. Completely, totally crazy about you. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversation and dancing and stolen moments. As the night wound down, Jonathan pulled Brianna aside to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. I know tonight was a lot, he said. The crowds, the cameras, Sterling being a jerk. Are you okay? I'm more than okay. Tonight showed me that we can handle anything together. That's all I needed to know. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, the city lights twinkling around them like stars. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. Want to get out of here? He asked. Go somewhere quiet where it's just us? Always. They left through a side entrance, avoiding the remaining photographers. In the car, Brianna kicked off her heels and leaned her head on Jonathan's shoulder. Thank you for tonight, she said. For what? For being proud to be with me. For not hiding me. For standing up for me even when I could stand up for myself. That's not something you need to thank me for. That's just what you do when you care about someone. I think I'm falling in love with you all over again, she admitted. Somehow deeper than before. His arm tightened around her. Good. Because I'm definitely falling in love with you. Maybe for the first time, maybe I've been in love all along and didn't know it. But either way, I'm all in. They drove to his house, both of them quiet but content. Inside, they changed into comfortable clothes and curled up on the couch, not ready for the night to end. So, Brianna said, playing with his fingers, what happens now? After going public? Now we just keep being us. Living our lives. Building our relationship. Whatever comes, we face it together. I like the sound of that. Me too. They fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in each other, and when Brianna woke in the early morning hours, she took a moment to just look at him. This man who had saved her, supported her, loved her even when neither of them knew what that meant. And she knew deep in her bones that whatever came next, they would face it together. Just like he promised. The weeks following the gala brought both joy and challenges. Photos from the event appeared in society pages and business magazines, showing Jonathan and Brianna dancing, laughing, clearly in love. The media speculation was intense but mostly positive, painting them as a modern love story. Brianna's meeting with Richard Morrison went better than she could have hoped. He loved her sustainable design proposals and offered her the contract on the spot. The biggest project of her career, and she had earned it on her own merit. But success brought its own complications. Morrison's development required Brianna to travel frequently to oversee different aspects of the project. Site visits, meetings with engineers, consultations with city planners. Her schedule became packed, leaving less time for Jonathan. They still saw each other several times a week, but the effortless quality of their early relationship began to strain under the pressure of their busy lives. One Tuesday evening, Brianna was at a construction site when her phone rang. Jonathan's name lit up the screen. Hey, she answered, pulling off her hard hat. What's up? I missed you at breakfast this morning. She winced. She had canceled their usual morning coffee date because of an early meeting. I know, I'm sorry. The Morrison project is at a critical phase. I understand. I feel like I haven't really seen you in days. Every time we make plans, something comes up. That's not fair. You know how important this project is. I do. And I'm proud of you. I just wish we could find more balance. Brianna felt frustration bubbling up. Jonathan, you're the one who helped me get this opportunity. Now you're complaining that I'm taking it seriously? There was a pause. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I miss you. The simple statement deflated her anger. I miss you too. I'm sorry I've been so busy. Don't apologize for succeeding. That's not what I want. Maybe we can grab dinner this weekend? No work talk, just us. I'd like that. Can I call you later? I need to finish up here. Of course. I love you. The words slipped out so naturally that it took a moment for both of them to process what he had said. Brianna's breath caught. You, what? I love you, Jonathan repeated, his voice steady now. I should have said it before. I should have made sure you knew. But I love you, Brianna. Completely. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too. So much. Good. Now go finish your work so we can celebrate this weekend. She hung up, clutching the phone to her chest, a ridiculous smile on her face. He loved her. Jonathan Bennett loved her. After 8 years of secret longing, 3 months of dating, and a lifetime of friendship, he finally said the words she had dreamed of hearing. Thursday afternoon brought an unexpected development. Brianna was in her office reviewing blueprints when her assistant Kelly knocked on the door. There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who is it? Grace Bennett. Brianna's heart skipped. Jonathan's sister had been kind at the gala, but they had not spoken much since. She came out to the reception area to find Grace pacing nervously. Grace? Is everything okay? Is Jonathan all right? He's fine. But we need to talk. Can we go somewhere private? They went to a coffee shop nearby, settling into a quiet corner booth. Grace ordered a latte but did not touch it, her fingers drumming anxiously on the table. I probably shouldn't be here, Grace started. Jonathan would kill me if he knew. But I care about both of you and I think you need to know something. Brianna's stomach tightened. Know what? There's a job offer. In Singapore. For you. A major firm there saw your Morrison project proposal and they want to hire you to head their new sustainable design division. It's a 3-year contract, huge salary, incredible opportunity. How do you know about this? The firm reached out to Jonathan first, asking for a reference. They know you two are together and wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any conflict of interest. He hasn't told you yet because he's trying to figure out how to handle it. Brianna sat back, processing this information. Singapore. 3 years. Halfway around the world from Jonathan. What did he tell them? That you were the most talented architect he knew and they'd be lucky to have you. He gave you a glowing recommendation. But Bri, I saw his face after that call. He's terrified of losing you. I can't just leave, Brianna said. We just started this relationship. He just told me he loves me. I know. But this is exactly the kind of opportunity you've worked your whole life for. And if you turn it down because of him, you might resent him later. Or worse, you might always wonder what could have been. Did he tell you to talk to me about this? No. Like I said, he'd be furious if he knew I was here. But I've watched him my whole life put everyone else first. Put his company first, his family first, his responsibilities first. And I've watched you do the same thing. You're both so busy taking care of everyone else that you don't take care of yourselves. Brianna's mind raced. When are they expecting an answer? They'll call you formally next week. But I thought you should have time to think about it before then. To really consider what you want, not just what Jonathan wants or what you think you should want. After Grace left, Brianna sat in the coffee shop for another hour, her latte growing cold. Singapore was a dream opportunity. The chance to work on cutting-edge sustainable design, to make a global impact, to establish herself as a leader in her field. But it meant leaving Jonathan. Leaving the relationship they had just started building. And long distance for 3 years. Could they survive that? Her phone buzzed. Jonathan, asking if she wanted to come over for dinner. She looked at the message for a long moment before responding. Yes. We need to talk. Jonathan knew something was wrong the moment Brianna arrived at his house. She was quiet, distracted, her usual warm smile forced. What's wrong? He asked immediately. She set down her purse and turned to face him. I got a job offer. Well, I'm about to get one. In Singapore. You went very still. How do you know about that? Grace told me. And before you get mad at her, I'm glad she did. I needed time to process this before they call me officially. Jonathan ran his hand through his hair, that gesture she knew meant he was stressed. I was going to tell you. I was just trying to figure out the right time. The right time to tell me about a job opportunity that could change my entire career? Or the right time to convince me not to take it? That's not fair. I would never ask you to give up something that important. But you don't want me to go. Of course I don't want you to go. I love you. I want you here with me. But that doesn't mean I won't support whatever decision you make. Brianna felt tears building. 3 years, Jonathan. 3 years on the other side of the world. How would we survive that? I don't know, he admitted. But we could try. Long distance visits when we can manage technology to stay connected. Or I could turn it down. Stay here with you. He moved to her, taking her hands. If you turn this down for me, you'll resent me eventually. This is everything you've worked for. I can't be the reason you don't reach your full potential. You're not just anyone to me. You're the person I've loved for 8 years. The person who just told me he loves me. How can I leave that? Because love means wanting the best for the other person. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. They stood there holding each other, both crying quietly. Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was rolling in. I haven't decided anything yet, Brianna said. Can we just not talk about this tonight? Can we just be together? Of course. They ordered takeout and tried to watch a movie, but neither could focus. The unspoken decision hung between them, heavy and impossible. When the rain started, hard and sudden, Brianna went to the window to watch it fall. Jonathan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Remember that day in the rain when we met? You were so frustrated with that customer and I asked if you were okay. I remember. You saved me that day. In more ways than one. You saved me too. I just didn't know it yet. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. I don't want to lose this. Lose us. You won't. No matter what you decide, you won't lose us. We'll find a way. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of her. And she kissed him back with 8 years of love and 3 months of new romance and the fear that this might not be enough. They made love that night for the first time, slow and tender and bittersweet. Afterwards, lying in his arms, listening to the rain, Brianna felt like she was standing at a crossroads with no clear path forward. I need to think about this, she whispered. Really think about what I want. I know. Take all the time you need. But time was the one thing they did not have. The offer would come next week, requiring an answer. And whatever she decided would change everything. As she drifted off to sleep, Brianna realized that for the first time in 8 years, she did not know what she wanted more, the career she had built or the love she had finally found. Brianna spent the weekend at her apartment, thinking. Tasha came over with wine and comfort food, ready to help her best friend work through the biggest decision of her life. Pros and cons list, Tasha suggested. Let's be practical about this. They sat on Brianna's couch with a notebook, drawing a line down the middle. Singapore pros, Brianna started. Career opportunity of a lifetime. International experience. Chance to lead a major division. Financial security. Making a global impact in sustainable design. Cons. Leaving Jonathan. Leaving my family. Starting over in a completely new place. 3 years is a long time. Staying here pros? Jonathan. My established career. My family and friends. The Morrison Project. Comfort and familiarity. And cons? Brianna hesitated. Always wondering what might have been. Possibly resenting Jonathan for being the reason I stayed. Watching other people take opportunities one turned down. Tasha set down her pen. You know what I think? I think you're looking at this wrong. This isn't about Singapore versus Jonathan. It's about what kind of life you want to build. What do you mean? You've spent 8 years loving Jonathan from a distance. Being his friend, supporting his dreams, helping him succeed. Now you finally have him and the universe throws you this curveball. But maybe it's not a curveball. Maybe it's a test. A test of what? Of whether your relationship is strong enough to survive real challenges. Anyone can be happy when everything is easy. But true love shows up when things get hard. Brianna thought about that. So you think I should take the Singapore job? I think you should make the decision based on what's best for you, not what you think Jonathan wants or what will make the relationship easier. And I think if your love is real, it will survive 3 years of distance. Over at his house, Jonathan was having a similar conversation with Grace. I can't believe you told her, Jonathan said, pacing his living room. Someone had to. You were going to wait until the last minute, probably hoping she wouldn't find out and you wouldn't have to deal with it. I was giving her time. Letting her enjoy her success with Morrison before dropping this bomb. You were avoiding the conversation, Grace corrected. Like you always do when things get emotionally complicated. How long were you friends with her before you admitted you had feelings? 10 years. 8. And that's different. Is it? Jonathan, you are brilliant at business. You can negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But when it comes to your personal life, you hide. You avoid. You hope things will just work themselves out. He sank onto the couch, knowing she was right. I don't want to lose her. Then fight for her. Not by asking her to stay, but by showing her that your love is bigger than distance or time or fear. How do I do that? Grace smiled. I have some ideas. Monday morning, Brianna arrived at her office to find a stunning bouquet of flowers on her desk. No card, but she knew who they were from. She called Jonathan. Thank you for the flowers. They're beautiful. You deserve beautiful things. How are you doing? Still thinking. How are you? Missing you. But trying to respect your process. I appreciate that. Can we have dinner this week? Before I get the official call? Absolutely. Wednesday. Perfect. Wednesday evening, they met at the waterfront, the same place where they had walked after the dinner celebrating her Morrison meeting. The symmetry was not lost on either of them. I've been thinking a lot about us, Brianna started as they sat on their bench. About what we mean to each other. Me too. And I keep coming back to what you said the night I confessed my feelings. That even if romance didn't work out, I wouldn't lose you. That our friendship was the foundation. Jonathan's chest tightened. Was she about to end things? But I realized something, Brianna continued. Our friendship was never just friendship. Not really. We've been in love for years, we just didn't call it that. And now that we have, I don't want to go backward. I don't want to be just friends again. Neither do I. So here's what I'm thinking. If I take the Singapore job, it's 3 years. 3 years where we'd have to work really hard to stay connected. Where we'd have to trust each other across thousands of miles. Where we'd have to believe that what we have is strong enough to survive. And if you stay? If I stay, I get to be with you every day. But I might always wonder about the opportunity one gave up. And that's not fair to either of us. Jonathan took her hands. I've been doing some thinking too. And I talked to Lisa about the company. Your business partner? Yeah. I asked her how she'd feel about me spending more time working remotely. Traveling more. Brianna's eyes widened. What did she say? She said I've been chained to my desk for 10 years and it's about time I trusted her to run things without my constant oversight. So I was thinking if you take the Singapore job, maybe I could visit regularly. Once a month for a week or two. We have the technology to work remotely now. And Singapore is a huge tech hub. I could even explore business opportunities there. You do that. I'd do anything for you. And this way you get your dream job, I get to keep the woman I love, and we prove to ourselves that we're strong enough to handle anything. Tears streamed down Brianna's face. I can't ask you to rearrange your whole life for me. You're not asking. I'm offering. Brianna, you accepted my help with tuition all those years ago. You let me open doors for your career. You've graciously received every gesture of support I've offered. So let me do this. Let me support you in chasing this dream, even if it means we have to be apart sometimes. She threw her arms around him, holding tight. I love you so much. I love you too. So what do you say? Ready to take on Singapore together? She pulled back, looking at him through her tears. You really think we can do this? I know we can. We've already proven we can do anything when we work together. This is just the next challenge. Brianna felt something settle in her chest, a certainty she had been seeking. Okay, let's do it. Together. He kissed her, and in that kiss was every promise they had made to each other over the years. Every sacrifice, every act of support, every moment of believing in each other when the world said to give up. There's something else, Jonathan said when they pulled apart. I want you to know before you make this official that I'm committed to us. Completely committed. And when you come back from Singapore, I want us to build a life together. A real, permanent, forever kind of life. Is that your way of saying you want to marry me? Eventually, yes. When the time is right. When you're ready. I'm not proposing now because I don't want you to think I'm trying to pressure you or compete with the job offer. But I want you to know that's where I see this going. You're it for me, Brianna. You always have been. More tears, but this time they were happy ones. You're it for me too. Always have been. They stayed on that bench until the sun set, making plans and dreaming about the future. Singapore would be hard, but they would make it work. And when Brianna returned, they would start the next chapter of their lives together. For the first time since Grace had told her about the job offer, Brianna felt peace. Not because the decision was easy, but because she knew she was making the right one. For her career, for her growth, and for a relationship strong enough to survive the test. The formal offer came the following Monday, just as Grace had predicted. Brianna sat in her office, reading through the contract details with both excitement and trepidation. 3 years in Singapore, leading a team of designers, working on projects that would shape the city's sustainable future. A salary that would set her up financially for life. Housing provided, relocation expenses covered, yearly trips home included. It was everything she could have dreamed of, and it scared her absolutely to death. She called Jonathan before responding to the offer. "I'm going to say yes," she told him. "I'm proud of you. When do you leave?" "They want me to start in 3 months. Time to wrap up the initial phase of the Morrison project and transition my other contracts." 3 months. Suddenly it felt both too soon and not soon enough. "Then we have 3 months to make the most of every moment," Jonathan said. "Starting with dinner tonight. I want to take you somewhere special." "Where?" "Trust me?" She smiled. "Always." That evening, Jonathan picked her up in a car she did not recognize. Not his usual sedan, but a vintage convertible, emerald green and gleaming. "When did you get this?" she asked, running her hand along the hood. "I didn't. I rented it for tonight. You mentioned once that you always wanted to ride in a convertible under the stars. I thought tonight was a good time to make that happen." Her heart melted. Of course he remembered something she had said in passing months ago. They drove out of the city, heading north along the coast. The top was down, the warm evening air flowing around them, stars beginning to appear overhead. Brianna leaned back in her seat, feeling free in a way she had not in weeks. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see." An hour later they pulled up to a small, charming building right on the beach. A restaurant by the looks of it, but not one Brianna recognized. Inside she gasped. The entire place had been transformed. Candles everywhere, soft music playing, and a single table set for 2 in the center of the room. Rose petals scattered the floor. "Jonathan, what is this?" "This is where I'm taking you on our first official date as a couple about to spend 3 years proving everyone wrong about long-distance relationships." A man appeared in a chef's coat, greeting them warmly. "Mr. Bennett, Miss Coleman, welcome. Everything is ready as you requested." They were seated and the chef explained the menu. A tasting course of all Brianna's favorite foods, prepared by one of the city's best chefs who Jonathan had convinced to do this private dinner. "You didn't have to do all this," Brianna said, overwhelmed. "I wanted to. I wanted tonight to be special. To be something you remember when you're halfway around the world wondering if we're crazy for trying this." The meal was exquisite, each course better than the last. Between dishes they talked about logistics. How often Jonathan would visit, how they would communicate, what they would do about holidays. Practical concerns mixed with romantic promises. "I need to tell you something," Jonathan said as dessert was served. "Something I should have said a long time ago." Brianna's heart skipped. "What?" "That day at the coffee shop when I first really noticed you, when you were upset about that customer. I told myself I was being kind by offering my business card. That I was just networking, just being a good person. But looking back, I think I was drawn to you from the start. Your strength, your determination, your refusal to give up even when everything was hard. I think I was a little bit in love with you even then." "Jonathan." "Let me finish. I spent 10 years convincing myself we were just friends. That what I felt was admiration or platonic love or anything other than what it really was. And I'm so glad you were brave enough to tell me the truth that night. Because I don't think I ever would have figured it out on my own. I would have spent my whole life wondering why no one else measured up, never realizing it was because I was already in love with my best friend." Brianna was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I never imagined you'd feel this way. All those years I thought I was alone in this." "You were never alone. I was just too blind to see what was right in front of me. But I see it now. I see you, Brianna. And I'm never going to take that for granted." He stood up, coming around the table to kneel beside her chair. "I know I said I wasn't going to propose yet. That I didn't want to pressure you before Singapore. But sitting here tonight, knowing you're about to embark on this incredible adventure, knowing that we're going to spend 3 years fighting for us, I can't not say this." Brianna's breath caught as he pulled a small box from his pocket. "This isn't a proposal. Not quite. But it's a promise. A promise that when you come back from Singapore, when you've conquered the world and shown them all what I've always known, I'm going to ask you to marry me. And I wanted you to have this now, to wear it as a reminder that you have someone here who loves you, who believes in you, who's waiting for you." He opened the box, revealing a beautiful emerald ring, the stone the exact shade of the dress she had worn to the gala. "It's a promise ring," he explained. "If you want it. If you're ready for that level of commitment. No pressure if you're not." Brianna couldn't speak through her tears. She held out her hand and Jonathan slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," she managed finally. "And yes, I want this. I want us. Today, tomorrow, and for every day after." He stood, pulling her up into his arms, kissing her like the world was ending and beginning all at once. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying. The chef appeared with champagne, having clearly been in on the plan. They toasted to Singapore, to long distance, to a future they were building together. "I have one more surprise," Jonathan said as they prepared to leave. "More? Jonathan, this is already the most romantic thing anyone has ever done. Trust me on this last one." He led her out to the beach behind the restaurant. The moon was full, casting silver light across the waves. And written in the sand, using what looked like glow sticks, were the words, "I thought you'd never ask." Brianna laughed, remembering the fire pit, the joke proposal, the words that had changed everything. "Turns out," Jonathan said, pulling her close, "you were asking me all along. Asking me to see you, to love you, to take a chance on us. And I'm so grateful you did." They walked along the beach, shoes off, hands clasped, planning a future that felt both terrifying and absolutely perfect. 3 months until Singapore. 3 years of long distance. And then a lifetime together. As they drove home under the stars, Brianna looked at the ring on her finger and knew, without a doubt, that every moment of waiting, every year of secret love, every fear and uncertainty had been worth it to get to this place. To get to a love that was brave enough to span oceans, strong enough to survive distance, and true enough to last forever. If you've made it this far in our story, thank you for being part of Brianna and Jonathan's journey. Their story reminds us that true love requires courage, patience, and trust. Please subscribe to see how their story ends and comment below. Would you take the job in Singapore or stay for love? 6 months later, Brianna stood in her Singapore apartment, video calling Jonathan. It was early morning for her, late evening for him, their usual time to connect. "I miss you," she said, the words that started most of their calls. "I miss you too. But only 2 more weeks until I'm there." Jonathan had been true to his word, visiting once a month for extended stays. They had figured out a rhythm, difficult but sustainable. And Brianna's work in Singapore was exceeding every expectation. She had led her team to win 3 major design competitions. Her sustainable housing projects were being held up as models for the future. She was being interviewed by international publications, invited to speak at conferences, establishing herself as a true leader in her field. And through it all, Jonathan had been her biggest supporter, celebrating every victory from thousands of miles away. "How's the Morrison building?" she asked. The project back home was in its final stages, and she had been consulting remotely. "They broke ground today. I went by the site and took pictures for you." He held up his phone, showing her images of the construction. Her design becoming real. They talked for over an hour about work and friends and all the small details of their separate lives that they wove together through these daily calls. When they finally said goodnight, Brianna felt the familiar ache of missing him. But underneath the ache was pride. They had done it. 6 months of long distance and they were still strong. Still committed. Still in love. What she didn't know was that Jonathan was already packing. Not for his scheduled visit in 2 weeks, but for a surprise trip. He had cleared his schedule, coordinated with Brianna's friends and colleagues, and planned something that would either be the most romantic gesture of his life or a complete disaster. 3 days later, Brianna came home from work to find her apartment filled with flowers. Not just a bouquet but dozens of arrangements, transforming her space into a garden. "What on earth?" she muttered, setting down her bag. A note sat on her kitchen counter in Jonathan's handwriting, "Follow the petals." A trail of rose petals led from her apartment into the hallway, down the stairs and out to a waiting car. The driver smiled at her. "Miss Coleman, I've been instructed to take you somewhere special. Mr. Bennett is waiting." Heart racing, Brianna got in the car. They drove through Singapore, the city lights reflecting off skyscrapers and water. Finally, they pulled up to a building she recognized, the company headquarters where she worked. But it looked different tonight, lit up in emerald green light. The driver opened her door. "Take the elevator to the roof." Brianna rode up, her mind spinning. What was Jonathan doing here? He was not supposed to arrive for 2 weeks. The elevator doors opened onto the rooftop and she gasped. The entire space had been transformed into a recreation of the fire pit from Jonathan's backyard, complete with comfortable chairs and twinkling lights strung overhead. But instead of the city view from his house, this overlooked all of Singapore. And standing by the fire pit, looking nervous and hopeful and perfect, was Jonathan. "Surprise," he said. Brianna ran to him, throwing her arms around him. "You're here. You're actually here. I couldn't wait 2 more weeks. I had something important to ask you." He pulled back, taking her hands. Around them, Singapore glowed, the city she had made her temporary home, the place where she had proven to herself that she could succeed on her own terms. "Brianna Coleman, do you remember the night I jokingly proposed to you?" She laughed through sudden tears. "How could I forget? It changed everything. You said, 'I thought you'd never ask.' And I've thought about those words every day since. Because you were right. I should have asked years ago. I should have seen what was right in front of me. But I'm asking now." He dropped to one knee, and this time there was nothing joking about it. He pulled out a ring, a stunning diamond that caught the light from the fire and the city below. "Brianna, you are my best friend, my partner, my love, the person who makes every day better just by existing. You've built an incredible life here, and I am so proud of you. And I know you still have 2.5 years left on your contract, and I will support you every single day of that time. But when you come home, I want you to come home to me. Not as my girlfriend, not as my partner, but as my wife. Will you marry me?" Brianna dropped to her knees too, facing him at eye level. "Yes. 1,000 times yes. But Jonathan, I need you to know something." "What?" "I talked to my company last week. They're opening an office in the city, near your headquarters. They want me to head it. I can finish my work here remotely and come home. This was always supposed to be 3 years, but I've learned what I needed to learn. I've proven what I needed to prove. And now I'm ready to build the next chapter. With you." It was Jonathan's turn to cry. "You're coming home?" "I'm coming home. In 3 months, as soon as we finish the current project phase. I was going to tell you on your next visit, but this is better. So much better." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it matched perfectly with the promise ring she had worn for 6 months. Then they were kissing, crying, laughing, holding each other like they would never let go. When they finally pulled apart, Jonathan had one more surprise. "Look up," he said. Brianna looked at the night sky, and her breath caught. Fireworks exploded overhead, painting the Singapore sky in brilliant colors. Emerald green and sapphire blue and ruby red, a symphony of light and sound. "You did not," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I absolutely did. Because you deserve fireworks, Brianna. You deserve all the grand gestures and romantic moments and everything you've ever dreamed of. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get them." They sat by the fire pit, wrapped in each other, watching the fireworks paint the sky. Around them, the city they would both return to soon seemed to glow with possibility. "I can't believe this is real," Brianna murmured. "That we're really going to get married. Believe it? I'm never letting you go. Best decision I ever made was offering you that business card 10 years ago. Best decision I ever made was accepting it. And every bit of help you've offered since. You taught me that it's okay to accept support, to let people who love you lift you up. And you taught me what real love looks like. Patient and kind and willing to wait for the right moment." The fireworks finale lit up the sky, a cascade of colors that reflected in both their eyes. When the last spark faded, they were still sitting there, engaged and happy and planning a future that had taken 8 years of friendship and 6 months of distance to finally arrive. 3 months later, Brianna landed back in her home city for good. Jonathan was waiting at the airport, holding a sign that said, "Future Mrs. Bennett," that made her laugh and cry at the same time. Her new job heading the sustainable design division of the international firm was everything she had dreamed of. And coming home to Jonathan every night was even better. They set a wedding date for the following summer, wanting time to plan properly. But in truth, they were already married in all the ways that mattered. Their lives had been intertwined for a decade, their hearts connected even longer. The night before their wedding, Jonathan took Brianna back to the fire pit where it all began. They sat in their familiar spots, drinking champagne, remembering. "Thank you," Brianna said quietly. "For what?" "For believing in me when I was a struggling student with no money and too many dreams. For supporting every step of my career. For giving me space to grow while still being there when I needed you. For loving me even when I was too scared to tell you how I felt. For being patient with me. Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth. For accepting my help without letting pride get in the way. For building a life so incredible that I get to be part of it. For choosing me every day even when it was hard. Tomorrow," Brianna said, "I get to marry my best friend. How did we get so lucky? Luck had nothing to do with it. We worked for this. We chose each other again and again, through every challenge and every triumph. This isn't luck. This is love." The wedding was beautiful, a celebration of two people who had found their way to each other through friendship, patience, and courage. Brianna walked down the aisle in a stunning emerald green dress, and Jonathan waited for her with tears in his eyes. When the minister asked who gave her away, Brianna's mother stood, but before she could speak, Brianna smiled and said, "I give myself. Because I've learned that the greatest gift is choosing who you love and being chosen in return. Jonathan's vows made everyone cry. 10 years ago, I met a woman who was working 3 jobs to chase her dreams. I thought I was helping her by offering financial support. But she was the one helping me, showing me what it means to be determined, to be kind, to be real. Brianna, you have given me more than I could ever give you. And I promise to spend every day of our marriage proving that you made the right choice in saying yes. Brianna's vows were just as moving. Jonathan, you saved me when I was drowning in debt. But more than that, you believed in me when I did not believe in myself. You saw potential where I saw only problems. You gave me friendship when I needed it most, and love when I was finally brave enough to accept it. I promise to be your partner in every adventure, your supporter in every dream, and your best friend for all the days of our life. When they kissed as husband and wife, the reception erupted in cheers. And later, as they danced their first dance to the same song that had played at the charity gala where they first went public, Jonathan whispered in her ear, "I thought you'd never ask." She laughed, remembering. "I thought you'd never notice. I'll never stop noticing you. Never stop choosing you. Never stop loving you." And he kept that promise. Through years of building careers together, through the joys and challenges of marriage, through every moment big and small, they chose each other. The billionaire and the architect. The man who offered help and the woman who accepted it with grace. Best friends who became lovers, who became partners for life. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was something better. It was real. It was earned. It was a testament to the power of patience, the courage of honesty, and the beauty of loving someone enough to let them chase their dreams while promising to be there when they returned home. And they lived, not happily ever after, but happily ever after, choosing each other, which turned out to be even better than any fairy tale ending could ever be.